Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com.
Steve, I once interviewed Tommy Lasorda and never asked him a question. Talked to him for 30 minutes.
That's Tommy Lasorda.
Yep.
You don't have to have a conversation with him. He can carry the whole thing for you.
I'm not even sure I asked for a conversation. I said, "Hey, Tommy, how are you doing?" And then that was it. So I guess I did ask him a question, but it was just, "How are you doing?"
Yeah.
He's a talker, that guy.
Oh yeah, and it was really neat to meet him. And I started to tell him what I did. He said, "I know what you do. I listen to the games." I said, "Yeah." So I was like, "Oh, okay." Great. So here we are. This is a pivotal week. This is the week where starters get solidified, sub-packages get more solidified, guys that are going to be part of the travel team, will be more solidified. And then at the end of the week, some guys are going to slide to the scout team. So what do you know to this point, or what do you think to this point?
I think they have a lot of talent. I think the guys who are going to slide to the scout teams, to me, are very interesting because there's going to be some guys on those scout teams who could probably play at some other programs, especially on the defensive line. I think there's actually a really deep defensive line. Secondary, obviously, is a spot that's going to happen. But yeah, I look at this whole team, and there's just a couple of obviously by the end of the week they want to have they want to probably have their middle linebackers settled. They want to have their offensive line kind of settled in, who's going to be where. I think they have a good idea of who's going to be where there, but I think they really want to see this week what they're going to have going forward. And you're right, this is the week where you're getting closer to the game. You want to be able to have a full week of practice with the guys you deem your ones and twos, and you want to be able to prepare for Purdue. So this is the week to get it done. But I really think that they pretty much know who's going where. And know what they got. This is not your typical team that was 500 over the last two seasons. This is a team where you know what you have talent wise, and it's just a matter of who's going to rise to the top and who's going to have to who's not going to be part of that rotation.
It's a very talented freshman class. How interested are you as to see which ones can break through and get themselves some plays during games?
Oh, very, because I think the freshman class, that's going to determine for you how good a team you could be. Do you have a dynamic running back out of those two guys? And I think they believe they do with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. But how much do you play those guys? How ready are they? If they're on the more ready side, you could have a dimension to this offense that you haven't seen in the last couple of years, which is that guy who could break the long run, who could beat you with speed, beat you in the passing game. I think they're really looking forward to that. But there's some other guys, defensive backfield. I think there's some guys who can come right in and play, and the defensive line as well. Everybody who asks me, where is there where is there a strength that nobody's talking about? I tell everybody the defensive line. I think they could be really, really good up front, and some of those guys are going to fit in there. But I don't know how many of these true freshmen are coming to start against Purdue, but they're gonna play quite a bit. Another thing I thought a lot about lately is back in 15 when they're playing Temple and they lose to Temple. Saquon Barkley had one carry.
Yes.
So Purdue game isn't necessarily an indication of who's going to play moving forward. At some point, those guys are going to put themselves in a position where they're the guys who are pushing everybody for playing time and maybe upsetting the apple cart, which is a good thing. In college football, you don't want comfortable starters.
Right. No question. Everybody is taking a low-key approach in talking about the offensive line, which I think is justified. In other words, show everybody. Okay. So what's your thought on the offensive line?
Yeah, that's a tough one because every year I think I don't know if I'd be the guy who's saying, like Franklin has the last couple of years, this is the year. I don't think you ever say this is the year,
right?
Because if it doesn't happen, you're the guy who said it was. You set the expectation at that level. But I do think, and I probably said this in past years, so I even hesitate to say it, but in past years they had a lot of experience up front, and those guys came back, and it was kind of just more of the same. But I think these guys have a little less experience, but a little more talent.
Yeah.
Guys like Olu, I thought Olu played really well the more I went back and watched it in the Outback Bowl. You can't tell sometimes just watching,
sure,
because you're watching 11 guys on the day of the
Right.
game, but you go back and you watch one guy, and I thought he looked pretty good. He looks like he could be the left tackle of the future. Tangwall, I think, is going to be a fascinating player for these guys. He's only listed at 6'5". He looks like he's much bigger than he's listed, and he's listed as a huge man. So I think he is a guy that everybody in the country thought was going to be a very talented player wherever he went. I think he can come in and make a big difference. But I like Juice better at center than I did at guard. I think that's a good fit for him, and it'll be very interesting to me to see where see what all the fuss is about with Sal Wormley. I think they really thought that was a big loss for them last year, to not have Sal and to have to work in those couple of guys who, the Wiggins and the Wilsons who played a little bit in the beginning. Wilson played most of the season at left guard. But I think those two guys, I think in the middle with Juice bringing a lot of experience back, and you could argue he was their best lineman anyway the last couple of years. But you could put Juice in the middle with all that experience and those two very talented guards. I think that makes you a better running team right there. And if you're a better running team, you're going to throw better. So because you're not going to be able to just sit back and rush the pass. That makes you a much better pass blocking team if you could run the ball. So with this team, it's all about every position. How much better can we run the ball? That cures a lot of ills. And I think those three guys on the offensive line can do it. Now, will they? I'm with James and Phil Trotwine on that one. You got to go prove it to me.
Yeah. Manny Diaz, you go back to what Miami did, and it was attack, attack, attack. Is that the sense you're getting when you listen to him about how he wants to play with Penn State's defense?
Oh, absolutely. He was after the media day. They had the practice open and went in, and he was the only guy I watched because I want to see how he coached.
Right.
And he has no nonsense, and he just talks about turnovers. He's an aggressive guy, and that does rub off. Now, does it mean you're going to get more turnovers? No, but I almost bet my house that they're going to have more. They're going to force more turnovers this year because not because Manny Diaz wants to or because he's always done it in the past, but because he has the schemes to do it and the players to do it. They're going to be able to rush passers this year, and they're going to be able to cover receivers. And that's how you force turnovers to me. Make the quarterback uncomfortable, make him take too much time. I think Penn State's defense sets up to do that, no matter who the coordinator would have been. I think that's what these guys are able to do, what they have the potential to do. I love the secondary. I mean, everybody does there. James Franklin raved about it at media day. They have a lot of good youth there, but a lot of experience as well. Kalen King, I think, is going to be a star. Jair is a potential All-American. But you're going to be able to cover good receivers, and you're going to be able to rush the passer if you stay healthy off the edges. Because I think off the edge up front they're going to be very, very good. So they have the potential anyway to be a team that forces a lot more turnovers. You had the Manny Diaz attitude. You had the Manny Diaz schemes. I think he was the perfect hire for that. I think that was an A+ hire, and I said it at the time. Now, is he going to be around forever? Who knows? Probably not. But for 1 year, if he's looking to rebuild that image of himself as the guy who forces the turnovers, the guy with the chaos defense, this is the team. If I were him, I would have wanted to coach because they have all those pieces.
Right. How often in your travels are you asked about the Big Ten television deal?
So not much by fans because they're going to watch whoever has it.
Right.
But a lot of the people a lot of the guys who I know from covering baseball and doing a lot of the Big Ten stuff, they're very into it because they think that's they think fascinating deal. They knew it was going to be big money, but once the networks were kind of, the blanks are kind of filled in there. I thought they thought that was a very interesting looking, an interesting looking deal. Let's put it that way about how this is going to be on the viewing experience for the fans on a Saturday afternoon. So, see, I don't know if many fans have asked me about it, but certainly people in the industry are fascinated by it.
What's interesting to me is that CBS is going to have to do, and the Big Ten is going to help them, I guess. They're going to have to do a juggling act next year because CBS still has the SEC next year at 3:30. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. In other words, the SEC doesn't go to ESPN until 24. So next year in that 3:30 time slot, CBS is going to have SEC obligations, and the Big Ten is going to be – they're going to work around it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I think that's going to be something we're talking a lot about next year, because I think that's going to be a Penn State game a lot of weeks.
Yeah,
because you're going to have, Fox is going to have, obviously the choice of the game of the week, but that game going against the SEC with CBS, that could be a Penn State game more often than not, because Penn State is always going to be a very interesting talking point and a big ratings grab for the networks. So yeah, I think for a year it could be a real mess. And the one thing a lot of those guys that I've talked to about this have asked me about was mixing NBC, Notre Dame. How do they all fit in? So there's a lot of moving parts, and it's a weird deal.
Notre Dame wants to be at 2:30. I mean, NBC only has their home games. They want to be at 2:30 unless there's one game like Clemson this year, which is at 7:30. So I don't really see how it's not going to impact them that often. But to me, it's going to be interesting to see how CBS juggles 23 because they still have the SEC deal.
Yeah, I think that's by far the most interesting thing for next year. But everybody, it's always this whole, does this mean the Notre Dame and the Big Ten is a formality? I don't think so.
No, I don't either.
I think Notre Dame, everybody thinks, Notre Dame's going to get strong armed into doing and to join the conference. I don't think Notre Dame has ever gotten strong armed into doing anything.
No.
That's not Notre Dame's style. They do what Notre Dame does, and people are going to watch Notre Dame. But yeah, next year with the SEC, because CBS is going to end up with a really great SEC game and the number 2 Big Ten game. If it's that good a Big Ten game, so it'll be very, very interesting to me to see how they play that out with what really is the future of their brand and what fans are expecting to see, broadcast nationally on a Saturday afternoon, especially late in the season.
All right. And NBC, by the way, is going to go with Jack Collinsworth and Jason Garrett to be their Notre Dame broadcast team this year. So
it can't be worse than last year.
Yeah, well, it's possible, yes. All right. Always a pleasure, Donnie. By the way, how are the Rail Riders doing?
The Rail Riders, on June 6th, were the worst team in AAA baseball record-wise. I think they were 17 games under 500, and they've played about 20 over since. So they're kind of a fascinating team right now in AAA baseball for anyone who follows that. They have some prospects who everybody thinks the Yankees should be calling up, but they're not going to do it. So this team they might go from worst record in the league at the halfway point to the playoffs. So that'll be an interesting follow here. But yeah, I'm sure once September hits, the Yankees will take a few of those guys, maybe. Probably
will. All right. The Yankees are not exactly rolling right now. They're 2-8 in their last 10, and when they face somebody that's over 500 of late, they struggle. All right, Donnie, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Look forward to talking again shortly.